Life Love Lessons Series 2 is designed with men in mind. Yes, men. Brothers, listen. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You have uncovered capacity for abundant living and loving. Hi, I am Teacher Hazel. Teaching is my ministry. I invite you, I challenge you to listen and learn some secrets that I will share with you in Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. Note, living abundantly is your legacy.
Yes, hello, greetings, and welcome to Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind, Series 2. And this is Lesson 6, 2 S-Men Stories. So that's where we're going this tonight. And as usual, let me identify. I am Reverend Dr. Teacher Hazel Ann Gibbs de Pisa, better known as Teacher Hazel. And my intention, as always, is to encourage you to love the life you live and live a life you love, and to empower you to access the more abundant life that Christ came to give us by revealing and unraveling some of life, love, lessons. And so we begin with an acknowledgement of our Creator and Sustainer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God sustains us. Wherever we are, God is. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. I thank God for you, and I thank you for being here with me. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind. So welcome, each and every one of you. And women, just as the men were welcome to Series 1, you are welcome to participate in Series 2. After all, we are in this life together. And this is Lesson 6, so we have 2 more lessons to complete the series. So at this point, let us review some of our foundational statements before moving on. So, brother, if you know your worth, if you know who you are, you won't need to use a gun or a blade or force to prove you have worth. When you know your worth, you don't have to keep proving it to yourself by trying to prove it to anyone else. Okay. Hopefully we're back on. I think we had a little glitch there. All right. So, as I was saying, when you know your worth, you don't have to keep proving it to yourself by proving it to anyone else. Living abundantly is your legacy. Loving life is your destiny. And remember, we learned that God made everything perfect, including you. And by now, of course, you should know that you are infinitely valuable, exquisitely unique, and perfect in your personhood. A quote from James McNeill. Yes, you are infinitely valuable because our God is infinite and He made you in His image. You are exquisitely unique because there's only one of you. The same way you would just have one fingerprint that is yours and it's nobody else's, there's just one of you. You are exquisitely unique. And you are perfect in your personhood. And we spent quite a bit of time explaining that in one of our earlier sessions. So, remember, you are a spiritual being currently sojourning in physical form, having a human experience. And of course, you remember that your thoughts create your life and that your perception is your reality. So at this time, let me welcome all the first timers and encourage you, if this is your first time, check out the earlier lessons. They are available in Abundant Life Mastery at the Call on YouTube. And of course, you're also welcome to like, comment, and subscribe, which will give you access to whatever else is put on the channel. So, Life Love Lessons with Men in Mind, Lesson 6, 2 S-Men Stories. S-Man number 1. And what does S stand for? S stands for strong. It stands for a few other things as well, but S stands for strong. So we're talking about some strong men. So strong man number 1 is physically strong. He was called the strongest man in the world. And his story is one of brawn, power that is physical strength. S-man number 2, our strong man, the second strong man we're going to be looking at. He was intellectually strong. He was not physically strong in terms of the wealth of his strength. He was intellectually strong, and he was called the wisest man on earth. So his story is one of brain power, that is, intellectual strength. So we're looking at 2 strong men. Both of them are very strong. Both of them excel in their range. And I am sure you have an idea of who they are. Yes. So strongman number 1 is Samson. And strongman number 2 is Solomon. Samson is the physical powerhouse, and Solomon is the intellectual powerhouse. And we are going to answer some questions about them. So we know that they are strong men. There's no question about that. Yes? Because of Samson, we learn in the book of Judges that on one occasion he found a new jawbone of an ass and put forth his hand and took it and slew 1,000 men therewith. So his physical strength is well known. And in terms of Solomon, his intellectual strength was particularly marked by the fact that 2 women came to him with this situation with a child where they had both born babies, and one baby died and the other mother took the living child and put it by herself and put the dead child for the other one, right? And they went to the king to solve the situation. And the king said, okay, so one is saying that it's my son, and the other one is saying that it's my son. So the king said, bring me a sword. And they brought a sword for the king. And the king said, we'll divide the living child in two. Give half to one and half to the other. So then there'll be no problem. Everybody has peace. And the woman whose living child it was, she said, oh my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the one whose child had already died, she said, divide it, let it be neither mine nor thine. And the king answered and said, give her, that's the one who said, give the other the child, the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof. So that by simply analyzing their approach, he knew who the real mother was. And of course, that spread his fame abroad. So yes, physically strong, Samson; intellectually strong, Solomon. But apart from being strong, we want to also look at, were they special? Were they sincere? Were they spiritual? Were they successful? And finally, were they silly? So we're going to look at both lives, both stories, and see how it works out. So we look first at Samson. So Samson's story tells us that he was physically strong. Strong enough that in one of his episodes, a young lion roared against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid, and he had nothing in his hand. Yes? Powerful physical strength. And we have other stories about him being approached by the Philistines, and he just took up the doors and the gates of the city and all the posts and the bar and everything, and just lift it out and put it on his shoulder and walk away with it, when they thought that because they lock up the place that they could keep him in and catch him. Right? So physically strong, definitely. Okay? Was he special? Of course he was special. He was one whose mother was barren. And in later age, an angel appeared to her and told her that she will conceive and bear a son, and gave her some instructions, telling her that the child will be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and that he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So he was definitely special. He was ordained to be one of the judges of Israel, to save them from the Philistines. Was he sincere? And in spite of all his strength and all that we know about him, was he sincere? Yes. We saw his sincerity when, after all that he had done, he called upon the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee. Only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my two eyes. And we are told that he took hold of the two pillars under the house that was full of people above, and he said, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were therein, and Samson as well. So that in his death, he brought down the Philistines. So that the fact that he recognized his mission, he was sincere enough, having done all that he had done, to say, Lord, just this once, this one more. Let me be able to complete my mission. He was sincere. Was he spiritual? And we know that he was spiritual because the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. So that whenever he was in a situation, he would be given this amazing strength. So much so that he would just break the bands or cords or whatever they put on him, right? He would just lose them. And of course, he called upon the Lord, and the Lord answered him. So that after one of his battles with the Philistines, he was thirsty and he called on the Lord. He said, you give me this great deliverance. And now what? I'm going to die of thirst and let them hold me, fall in their hands. And we are told that God clave a hollow place that was in the jaw that he used to kill them. And there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again and he revived. So indeed he was spiritual. He had that connection with God. Was he successful? Of course he was successful. We are told that the dead that he slew at his death, when he called on God to give him that last opportunity with his strength, that he killed more than he had slain in all his life on that day. And of course, he was also successful as a judge of Israel. He judged Israel for 20 years. So he was successful. So we're talking here about a story of a man who was really mighty. The last question asks, was he silly? So he's strong, he's special, he's sincere, he's spiritual, he's successful. But the next S, was he silly? And again, the answer is yes. Because he fell to the wiles of Delilah. And I'm sure you all know this story quite well, right? And here this man with all his strength gets in with Delilah. And Delilah says, tell me, where does your great strength lie? And what we have to do to bind you and afflict you? And of course, initially, he just told her, well, if you tie me with 7 green withs that will never dry, I'll be weak and you could. And she bound him. And she called the Philistines, and she said to him, the Philistines are upon thee, Samson. And of course, he just got up and broke the withs that he was tied with. And he left. And the woman says to him the next time, you're telling me lies. Why are you doing me that? You're mocking me, man. You tell me one thing and it wasn't so because you break it and just walk off. And he gave her another story. Use new ropes that were never occupied and I'll be weak. And of course, she got new ropes, bound him, right? Called in the men, and then woke him up and told him, Philistines are upon you. And he broke the ropes and he walked off. Now, do you think he would fall for that a third time? Having done it and having seen her intention, Because obviously, if what he had said to her was true, then he would have been in trouble. Remember, he's one of the judges of Israel. He is the strong man representing Israel. So she said again to him, "You're fooling me, man. You're only lying to me. You ain't telling me the truth, and you're telling me you love me, and I don't understand that." So he tells her again, "Okay, weave the 7 locks and tie it with a web and fasten it with a pin, and they will have me then." And she does it, and the men come, and when she wakes him, he gets up and he walks with the pin, the beam, everything. And you would think that was the last, right? Because look at the length that she went to. And each time the men are coming actually to hold him. But I guess you call it love. He was so in love that he continued to go. And again, she harassed him. You're telling me you love me, but you're telling me the truth. What kind of love is that? If you really love me, you will tell me the truth about your strengths. You will tell me what it takes to break you. And he get fed up the nagging, and he decide, I can tell you the truth. Now, after all that went before, when you tell her the truth, what do you expect will happen? So he told her his heart, and what did she do? She arranged to have his head shaven, put him to sleep on her knees, had his locks shaven. She herself began to afflict him to make sure that he really can't make this time. And then she said to him, "The Philistines be upon thee, Samson." And he foolishly woke up out of his sleep and tell himself, well, I'll just shake off everything and go as usual, forgetting that he had already given away the secret. And therefore the Lord had departed from him. He did not have his strength anymore. So indeed he was silly. Silly to the extreme. Because look at how many chances he had to recognize that, listen, you've been doing things against your training, because he was a Nazarite, remember, even in the womb. And there are certain things that you didn't do, and he was doing all of those things, running with all these women, etc. And you're being tested, and you fall for the bait to explain where your strength is. So that in spite of the fact that he was strong and special and sincere and spiritual and successful, he was silly. To use my own terms, he was dotish, because he had several opportunities to make him understand where the woman was coming from. But he failed to see it. You remember, it's not what you look at, it's what you see. He failed to see it. So let's look at Solomon and see how he fared, because after all, Samson was brawn. So we could say, well, he didn't have much brain, but he was brawn, physical strength. Let's go to the one who had all the brain, Solomon. So strongman Solomon's story tells us that he was intellectually strong enough, that he was wiser than all men, and his fame was in all nations round about. And he spake 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. That is intellect. Yes? Yes, so he is strong intellectually. And we ask the same questions as we go through his story. Was he special? And of course, he was special in that, just as the Lord had been with his father David, so the Lord was with Solomon and made his throne even greater than the throne of David. And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore. Wasn't he special? Oh, definitely. Right? He had a wise and an understanding heart. Nobody was like him. He was special. Was he sincere? Yes, he was sincere. When he was given the option, he said, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? Yes, he was sincere, and the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked him this thing. Yes, he was sincere. Was he spiritual? Of course. Solomon loved the Lord, and he walked in the statutes of David his father. And when he went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, in Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night and said, Ask what I shall give thee. And that was not the only time that the Lord appeared to him and spoke directly to him. Because, so this is at the beginning, and even later on, after he had dedicated the temple and all that, the Lord came and spoke to him again. So, yes, we know that he was spiritual. He had a direct relationship with God. Was he successful? His success outshone any other success. He reigned over all the kingdoms from the river unto the land of the Philistines and unto the border of Egypt. And everybody brought presents for him. Was he successful? He was successful in that he excelled in wisdom. Right? People came from everywhere to hear him. He was successful even in the building of the temple, 7 years, building of his house, 13 years, building of a house in the forest of Lebanon. There's no question to his success. He was indeed successful. Was he silly? Now, this is a man who is intellectually strong, who is mighty in terms of words and thoughts and plans and creating and completing. And listen to how silly he was. Because God spoke to him after he had done the lavish dedication of the temple. And at that point, he declared that God was God and God alone. And he asked God to do all kinds of things for him and his people. And God agreed. God agreed. And God spoke to him directly and said, If thou wilt walk before me as David thy father, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, and do according to all that I have commanded thee, and keep my statutes and my judgments, I will establish the throne of thy kingdom upon Israel forever. And he went on to tell him, if you turn from following me, if you don't keep my commandments and my statutes, if you go and you serve other gods and you worship them, I will cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them. And this house which I have hallowed for my name will I cast out of my sight. And Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. This is God speaking directly to him, letting him know the consequences of going against his word. But what do we see happening? We are told in chapter 11, the very first verse, King Solomon loved many strange women. So there we go again. The first one was brawn, this one is brain, but going after strange women, going after nations concerning which the Lord said unto him, don't go, don't let them come into you, because they will turn your heart away from me and you will begin to worship their gods. But those are the women he clung to. So he had all his hundreds of wives and princesses and concubines. And what did they do? Turn his heart away from God. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. His heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. So in spite of his intellectual strength, in spite of how bright he was and how wise he was, in spite of his relationship with God, here we see that Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord and went not fully after the Lord as did David his father. But he went building high places unto all kinds of strange gods and sacrificing unto them because they were the gods of all his strange wives. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord, which had appeared unto him twice. I mean, God spoke to you directly. And you know, it causes me to remember a certain friend I had. He was quite spiritual and quite strong and thought that he was top notch and that nobody could. And this is what happened with Solomon. He just tell himself, I bright enough not to fall for their ploys. You know, they can't outsmart me. And this guy got outsmarted again by a woman and lost his life because of his stupidity. So here we see again how silly Solomon was. So we look at all these attributes of these two strong men. They're strong, they're special, they're sincere, they're spiritual, they're successful, and yet they are silly, stupid. So much so that towards the end, Solomon had to say that everything is vanity and vexation of spirit. He was wise enough to recognize that it was vanity and vexation of spirit. So whereas he started off mighty, he ended up falling apart because he did not follow in the way of the Lord. So what is your S story? Yes, to my brothers and fathers and uncles and sons. What is your S story? Are you strong? Are you special? Are you sincere? Are you spiritual? Are you successful? And or are you silly? And let's just see how well you do where that is concerned. Yes, you are strong, you are special, and you are spiritual. Why? Remember we looked at this? Because the infinite spiritual being, the vertical axis, and the finite physical being, the horizontal one, have a meeting point, an intersection. The now, the fact that you are alive, the now, you have that access to divine intelligence, to divine empowerment. So yes, you are strong because you have access to strength. You are special because God made you special and he has given you the opportunity to access all that he has. And yes, you are spiritual because remember, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. So you are spiritual. You just have to acknowledge it. So yes, you have those qualities. Are you sincere? You have the option to be sincere. You saw that Samson and Solomon displayed their sincerity. And I'm sure that if you think back, you will recognize. And if you haven't yet, then you have the time now because it's made aware to you. And are you successful? And again, yes, you are successful because you have the option to be successful. You have all the wherewithal to be successful. And remember, success is not just about having how many houses and how many cars, and right? Because we see that Solomon, with all the success in terms of his wisdom and his wealth, got to the point where he realized that it's all vanity, vexation of spirit. The peace of mind, the love of God dwelling in you, that's where the success really lies. Because no matter what you have, if you're unhappy, success is empty. Yes? So, in spite of all the colors in their lives, the two strong men were successful. They fulfilled their purpose. What you need to know is, are you fulfilling your purpose? Because you see, when you fulfill your purpose, that's when you get the peace and the joy that happens at a level that passes human understanding. Are you fulfilling your purpose? And if you're not fulfilling it yet, will you fulfill your purpose? Because we are all powerful beings because of the infinite source that we are all connected to. We have access. Remember, God made everything perfect, including. And then there's the last question. Are you silly? Now, we saw how many silly things the two strong men did. And I'm sure you have your list of silly things that you have done. and even some that you're still planning to do. But that was not all to them. So your identity is not what you do, but what you be. Doing is not being. Because you can do some great things without being great. And very often we get caught up in doing and we do not pay attention to being. You are a spiritual being. You are a human being, not a human doing. Your identity is not what you do, but what you be, what you are. So stop trying to do the most and be the most. In other words, what are you bringing to the world? Who or what are you? You want to be good. You want to be fair. You want to be love. You want to be true. Be helpful. Be caring. Be grateful. Be kind. What are you being? So in spite of the fact that you may have done a number of things that didn't make sense, as we saw in the lives of these two great men, while it had its ill effects, it did not deny their greatness, because they were great. And you are great because God made you in his image. And therefore you are great. So even though you may not accomplish a million things, even though you may not do spectacular things, understand that in your relationship with God, it is who you are, not what you do. Who you are. Be the image of your Creator. Because you are a powerful instrument in the symphony of life. That's a quote from Michael Beckwith. You are a powerful instrument in the symphony of life. Because life is one big symphony. And every instrument is important in the symphony. So you are worthy. You are important. You are spiritual. So you have to focus on what you be, as the Creole would express it. The English turned the be into whatever forms they had to in their language system. But it's what you be that is important. Your being, not your doing. We're told that at the last day, many people will say, but I do this in your name, and I do that, and I do this, and I, you know what I do, and Father, what I do, this, I do that, I do. And he said, yeah, you do all them things, but who were you? What was your being to go along with that doing? Were you honest? Were you good? Were you love? What did you bring to the world? Did you bring love and joy and peace to anybody in spite of all you're doing? What were you being? Because that is what is important. And as we look at the lives of these two strong men, it says to you, my brothers, fathers, uncles, and sons, it says to you that whether you have and whether you do, it is important that you be. And even if you don't have much and you don't do much, it is your being that matters most. And you may think to yourself, well, I do so much stubbornness already, but God doesn't give up on us. We give up on him. In spite of all that Samson had done, in terms of the dotishness, when he said to God, look, let me finish off grand. Let me do what you sent me to do to the greatest that I can do it. He gave him the strength to do it. God doesn't turn his back on us. We turn our back on him. In spite of all that Solomon did and as vexed as God was with him, he told him, he said, I'm going to mash up this story, but I ain't going to do it to shame you while you live. When you're dead, this world is staying together as one the way you had the power over everybody anymore. I'm going to divide it up. This one go own a piece and that one go be Lord here and that one. Right? So he was still kind. God is always kind and loving to us. We are never too far gone for him to still take care of us. Remember that. So whether you're big in the place, you could still fall. Whether you're small in a corner, you can still be great. Because you are connected to the infinite source of all greatness. You are a powerful instrument in the symphony of life. And remember, the fact that man does not always behave as if he is perfect, that does not alter the perfection of God's handiwork. You can choose to live your purpose and be the me that God created you to be. Or you can choose not to. That's the choice you have. So, do you become the I am of the power that is breathing you? Or do you stick with the I am of the ego and the personality? The choice is yours. You are in this place at this time for a purpose. God has already made the way for you. Wake up and walk in your purpose. As we get to questions and answers, and I'm going to start off the questions, and I'm going to ask you, will you take 3 cleansing rectangular breaths with me? Cleansing, because when you breathe in the breath of God with all its power, and it can do all that needs to be done in you. And when you breathe out all that is not required for you. So you want to use your imagination. That's one of your mental faculties. And as you breathe in to the count of 4, it's a rectangular breath. You breathe in the breath of God and you see his might and his power coming into you. And when you breathe out, remember you blow out, so you're breathing in through your nose and you're blowing out through your mouth, right? You're blowing out all that is not needed. So let's do that. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to ask you, will you relax? Focus on your breath and use your imagination to just be. See yourself just being, not doing anything. So you focus on your breath. So we're going with the rhythm of the breathing. In, 2, 3, 4, and out to 8. And as you do that, you focus on the breath and you say, I am. I am me. I love the me that I am. I am. I am me. I love the me that I am. I am. To be, I am. I am me, the me that God created, that perfect being. I love the me that I am. I love what God created. And because I love what God created, I'm going to be what he created. A perfect being. Strong and powerful and sincere and successful and spiritual, even though I'm sometimes silly. So it's not that because I'm silly, I'm not anything else. No. Even though I'm sometimes silly, I am still the perfect being that God has created. And so our time is almost up. So I guess we have come to the end of lesson 6. And next week we shall explore lesson 7, which is entitled Wait. Yes, wait. And that's going to be quite interesting. I'm looking forward to that. I hope you have enjoyed being with me as much as I have enjoyed being with you, and that you have learned some of life, love lessons. I look forward to sharing with you again next week. And as you go, please make every effort to love yourself. It's the only self you have. To love your life. It's the only life you know. To live abundantly. It's your birthright. To love God. It's your purpose for being here. Love, joy, peace, sweet dreams, blessings. Thank you, and bye-bye. See you next week, God's Spare Life, when we will look at wait. Yes, wait. God bless you all, and thank you again. Bye.